The massive view screen aboard Hope's Horizon space station flickered to life, revealing a sight that would have made most military commanders break into a cold sweat. The alien fleet stretched as far as the eye could see, their ships gleaming like polished obsidian against the star-filled backdrop of space. Commander James stood with his hands clasped behind his back, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. At his feet, something rustled beneath his command station, but the camera's view didn't extend that far down. "You have exactly one planetary rotation to surrender," the alien commander's voice boomed through the speakers. High Commander Vex's face filled the screen, a sight that had caused several junior officers to flinch. The alien's 4 eyes blinked in an unsettling pattern, and its scaled skin shifted colors with each word. James simply nodded, that same mysterious smile still on his face. "That's fair, though I have to ask, why so generous with the timeline?" The question seemed to catch Vex off guard. The alien commander's scales flickered from deep purple to a confused blue-green. "Generous? We are the Galactic Coalition. Our fleet has conquered 12 solar systems. Our weapons can crack planets like shells. And you?" Vex leaned closer to the screen, all 4 eyes narrowing. "You think we are being generous?" "Well, yes," James replied, scratching his chin thoughtfully. "I mean, a whole rotation is quite a lot of time, especially if you're so confident." A low growl came from under James's station, making one of the alien bridge officers visible in the background jump. Vex's scales rippled with interest. "What was that sound?" the alien commander demanded. "Oh, nothing to worry about right now," James said casually, glancing down for a moment. "Just thinking about your offer. Tell me, High Commander, in your 12 conquered systems, did you ever encounter any pets?" The word seemed to translate poorly. Vex's universal translator crackled, and the alien scales turned a deep crimson. "Pets? You mean domesticated prey animals? Those weak creatures some species keep for food production?" James coughed, clearly trying to hide a laugh. "Something like that, yes, though we tend to keep ours for companionship." Another growl, slightly louder this time. On the screen, several alien bridge officers backed away from their stations. Vex's color shifted to a militant orange. "You dare to mock us, while we have enough firepower to turn your world to ash." The alien commander's voice rose with each word. "Perhaps we should demonstrate our power now, rather than wait for your surrender." Now," James said soothingly, raising his hands. "No need for that. I'm simply trying to understand our situation better. You see, we humans have a rather unique approach to handling dangerous things." "A unique approach?" Vex's scales flickered with mixed colors, curiosity warring with anger. "Yes, you see, thousands of years ago, when we were still developing as a species, we looked at some of the most dangerous predators on our world and thought, hey, I bet we could be friends with that." The alien bridge fell silent. Even Vex seemed stunned by this statement. "You? Befriended predators?" The alien commander's voice had lost some of its thunder, replaced by disbelief. "Oh yes, in fact." James glanced down again, and his smile widened. "Would you like to meet one?" Before Vex could respond, another growl echoed through the command center. This time, several alien officers visibly backed away from their control panels. Vex's scales had taken on a pale, almost white color. "You keep a predator on your command bridge?" "Of course. Where else would I keep my best friend?" James reached down to pat something out of view. "Would you like to see? I mean, if you're going to conquer us anyway, you might as well meet one of Earth's most loyal defenders." The alien commander's scales shifted through a rainbow of colors before settling on a deep, authoritative purple. "Very well. Show us this defender of yours. Let us see what pathetic creature you think could possibly." Vex's voice trailed off as James straightened up and cleared his throat. "Well then, if you insist." He glanced down one final time, his eyes twinkling. "Time to say hello, old friend." The growl that followed was enough to make Vex's scales turn pure white. To be continued. 6 hours had passed since the first contact, and High Commander Vex was starting to feel uneasy. The human space station, Hope's Horizon, had made no obvious defensive preparations. No weapons had been activated. No shields had been raised. Even more disturbing, they hadn't detected any emergency communications to Earth. Report, Vex demanded, scales shifting to a deep blue of confusion. High Commander, one of the bridge officers spoke up, their own scales a nervous yellow. We've detected multiple instances of entertainment broadcasts still running on Earth. They don't seem to be taking our threat seriously. Vex's scales rippled with anger. On the main view screen, they could see the blue-green planet spinning peacefully below, surrounded by the Coalition's mighty fleet. The sight should have inspired terror, not this bizarre calm. Open the channel to their Commander James again, Vex ordered. The screen flickered, and James appeared, looking as relaxed as ever. He appeared to be eating something. Is that sustenance? Vex asked, momentarily distracted. Oh, this. James held up what looked like a curved yellow fruit. It's a banana. Want one? We got plenty. A scratching sound came from below James's station, and several alien officers instinctively backed away from their screens. You mock us? Vex's scales turned a dangerous red. Half of your orbital time has passed. Where are your defenses? Your weapons? Your mighty armies? James finished his banana and tossed the peel into a recycling bin. Well, about that. We were thinking of showing you our secret weapon. But the timing isn't quite right. Timing? Vex's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. What do you mean, timing isn't right? Well, James said, checking his watch, we need to wait for the right moment. You can't rush these things, you know. Precision is important. Another sound from below the station, this time something between a whine and a yawn. The alien bridge crew collectively took another step back. Scans, Vex demanded, turning to their science officer. What is that creature they're hiding? The science officer's scales had turned a pale green of fear. Our readings are unclear, High Commander. We detect a life form, but its energy signature is unlike anything in our database. It appears to be sleeping. Sleeping? Vex turned back to the screen. You keep your ultimate weapon sleeping under your command station. James shrugged. Best place for it, really. Keeps morale up. Speaking of which, he reached down again, and there was a quiet thumping sound. Almost time for the afternoon walk. Walk. The word seemed to confuse the universal translators. You exercise your weapon. Of course. James smiled brightly. Have to keep it healthy and happy. A happy defender is an effective defender. That's what we always say. Vex's scales cycled through colors so quickly it made their bridge crew dizzy. You treat your ultimate weapon like family, James finished, his voice warm. That's the thing about us humans, High Commander. We tend to form strong bonds with our protectors. The alien commander stared at the screen, trying to process this information. Their mighty fleet had conquered 12 systems, and none of them had ever mentioned anything like this. What kind of species treated weapons like family members? 3 more hours, Vex finally said, trying to regain control of the situation. Then we will see this weapon of yours, and you will understand the futility of resistance. Oh, I think we'll all understand something, James replied cryptically. He reached down again, and this time the bridge crew could hear what sounded like scratching behind ears. The connection cut off, leaving the alien bridge in unsettled silence. High Commander, the science officer spoke up hesitantly. Should we perhaps research Earth's historical records of weapons development? Yes, Vex replied, their scales settling into a thoughtful purple. Find out everything you can about Earth's most dangerous creations. What kind of weapon needs walking? What kind of weapon sleeps? And most importantly, they turned all 4 eyes to their crew. What kind of weapon can make those sounds? As the Coalition fleet maintained its position around Earth, none of them noticed the increasing number of small, furry creatures being transported to strategic positions around the planet's surface. The humans were preparing something, all right, but it wasn't anything the Coalition could have possibly expected. To be continued. The final hour of the ultimatum ticked away as High Commander Vex stared at the screens surrounding their command chair. The research team had spent hours digging through Earth's public broadcasts and historical records, but what they found made no sense. "High Commander," the science officer reported, scales flickering with confusion. "We found numerous references to Earth's most loyal defenders, but..." They paused, checking their data again. They appeared to be some kind of four-legged furry creatures that humans keep in their homes. In their homes. Vex's scales shifted to a baffled green. What kind of weapon lives in homes? The communication screen lit up before anyone could answer. Commander James appeared, looking even more cheerful than before. "Well," he said, brushing some fur off his uniform, "I suppose it's time. Are you ready to meet our greatest ally?" Vex's scales hardened into a militant orange. "No more games, human. Show us this weapon, and then prepare for your inevitable defeat." "As you wish." James turned away from the screen and called out, "Max, come here, boy." The alien bridge crew watched in tense silence. Some had weapons ready. Others had emergency shields activated. None of them were prepared for what happened next. A large four-legged creature trotted into view, tongue lolling out of its mouth, tail wagging happily. Its fur was mostly black and tan, its ears pointed and alert, and its eyes bright with intelligence. "This," James announced proudly, "is Max. He's a German Shepherd, one of Earth's finest K9 units." The reaction on the alien bridge was instant and dramatic. Officers dove under consoles. The security team formed a protective circle around Vex. The High Commander's scales had turned pure white, a sign of absolute terror. You keep one of those as a companion." Vex's voice trembled. "Those are the most feared predators in 3 galaxies. Their ancestors hunted our ancestors across the stars." James looked down at Max, who had sat down and was now tilting his head curiously at the screen. "This good boy. Well, he is a predator, technically, but good? Good?" Vex's scales were cycling through colors rapidly. "Those beasts destroyed entire civilizations. They hunted our kind for sport. And you pat its head." As if to demonstrate, James reached down and scratched behind Max's ears. The dog's tail wagged faster, and he let out a happy woof. The sound made the entire alien bridge crew flinch. "Would you like to see what he can do?" James asked innocently. "No. Wait." Vex held up all 4 hands in surrender, but James had already pulled something from his pocket. "Max, look what I got." He held up a tennis ball. The alien crew watched in horror as the beast's eyes locked onto the small yellow sphere, its entire body tensing with predatory focus. James drew his arm back and threw the ball. Max bounded after it with the grace of a natural hunter, caught it in midair, and brought it back to James, tail wagging the entire time. "Good boy," James praised, taking the ball and giving Max a treat. "Who's a good boy? You are." The alien bridge was dead silent, watching as one of the most feared predators in galactic history rolled over for a belly rub. This is impossible," Vex whispered. "You've somehow tamed them, made them playful." "Of course," James replied, still rubbing Max's belly. "Humans and dogs have been best friends for thousands of years. We evolved together, learned from each other. They protect us. We protect them. That's what friendship is about." Max rolled back to his feet and gave a friendly woof to the screen. 3 alien officers fainted. "And you should know," James added casually, "Max here isn't alone. Every human military base, every major city, every important installation has dogs like him. Some even scarier-looking ones, too. Would you like to see our Rottweilers? Or maybe some Siberian huskies? No. Vex's scales had settled into a pale blue of defeat. No, I think we need to reassess our position on Earth's defenses. James smiled and threw the tennis ball again. As Max joyfully chased after it, the mighty coalition fleet began to realize that perhaps they had made a terrible mistake in threatening a species that had taken the galaxy's most feared predators and turned them into loving pets. To be continued. The mood aboard the coalition flagship had changed dramatically. High Commander Vex sat in their command chair, scales a thoughtful blue-gray, while watching security footage of Earth's cities. Each new image seemed more incredible than the last. They let the beasts sleep in their beds, one officer whispered in horror, watching a family video of a golden retriever cuddling with children. They dressed them in clothes. Another added, pointing to a pug wearing a tiny sweater. The main screen still showed Commander James and Max, who was now lying on his back, paws in the air, getting a thorough belly rub. "I don't understand," Vex finally said. "On our worlds, creatures like these were the apex predators. They hunted our ancestors into caves, forced us to develop technology just to survive. How did you make them love you?" James looked thoughtful as he continued petting Max. "Well, it's quite a long story. You see, thousands of years ago, some brave humans noticed that certain wolves were less aggressive, more curious about us. Instead of fighting them, we shared our food. Over time, they started helping us hunt, warning us of dangers, keeping us warm at night." The alien crew listened in fascination as James continued. "Generation after generation, these wolves evolved alongside us. We chose the friendlier ones to breed, the ones who were good with our children, the ones who wanted to work with us. Over time, they became dogs, our partners, our protectors, our friends. But they're still predators," one of the science officers pointed out, their scales shifting nervously as Max yawned, showing his impressive teeth. "Oh, absolutely," James agreed. "That's part of what makes them such great companions. They're strong enough to protect us, smart enough to understand us, and loyal enough to love us. Look at this." He pulled out a small bag of treats. Max immediately sat up straight, ears forward, fully alert. "Max, lie down," James commanded. The dog instantly dropped to the floor. "Roll over." Max rolled. "Speak." A single, clear bark. Quiet. Immediate silence. The alien bridge crew watched in amazement as the fearsome predator obeyed each command perfectly. "Remarkable," Vex breathed. "The level of control." "Not control," James corrected gently. "Partnership. Trust. Max doesn't obey me because he's afraid. He does it because we're a team. Because we trust each other." He reached down to scratch behind Max's ears. Dogs can sense when someone is afraid, angry, or sad. They'd protect the weak, comfort the troubled, and show unconditional love to their human families. Families. Vex's scales rippled with surprise. "You consider them family?" "Many of us do." James pulled out his phone and showed them pictures. "This is Max as a puppy. My wife and I got him when he was 8 weeks old. Raised him, trained him, loved him. He's been with us through good times and bad. That's what family does." The science officer was frantically taking notes. This could explain why their society developed so differently from ours. While we were fighting against these predators, they were working with them, learning from them. "It's not just dogs," James added. "Humans have partnered with all sorts of animals. Horses helped us travel and build civilizations. Cats protected our food from rodents. Even birds and fish have become our pets." Vex's scales had settled into a deep purple of revelation. "Your species didn't just survive alongside predators. You made them part of your society. Your strength isn't in weapons or technology. It's in our ability to make friends." James finished, smiling as Max rested his head on his lap. "Even with those who might seem scary at first." The meaning behind his words wasn't lost on the alien commander. Vex looked at their mighty fleet, then back at the human calmly petting what their species had considered a nightmare creature for millennia. Perhaps, Vex said slowly, their scales shifting to a diplomatic green, we should discuss a cultural exchange program instead of conquest. Max's tail wagged at the suggestion, and for the first time, some of the alien crew found themselves wondering if maybe, just maybe, these good boys weren't so terrifying after all. To be continued, if you're interested, Commander James said, noting the aliens' growing curiosity. I could show you more of what Max can do, maybe even let you meet him. From a safe distance, of course. High Commander Vex's scales flickered between fear white and curiosity purple before settling on a cautious blue-green. After a brief discussion with their security team, they agreed to board the human space station with a small delegation. 20 minutes later, the alien group stood in Hope's Horizon's main observation deck, watching as James and Max entered through the opposite door. The aliens had insisted on a force field between them and the dog, which James had accepted with an amused smile. First, James announced, let's show you how dogs help protect humans. Max, search. The German shepherd's whole demeanor changed. His playful expression became focused as he began methodically checking the room, nose working overtime. Within seconds, he sat down next to a small package James had hidden earlier. Good boy, James praised. In this way, dogs help us find hidden dangers, illegal substances, even lost people. The alien scientists were frantically recording everything while Vex watched with all four eyes wide open. Now watch this, James continued. He set up several small cones on the floor. Max, weave. The dog expertly zigzagged through the cones, showing incredible control and agility. The aliens gasped as Max completed the course without touching a single cone. Such precision, one of the scientists murmured. And no visible weapons or control devices. Just training and trust, James replied. He pulled out a small first aid kit and laid it on the floor. Max, bring medical. Max carefully picked up the kit and trotted over to James, holding it gently in his mouth. Dogs can be trained to help sick or injured humans, James explained. Some can even sense when a person is about to have a medical emergency before it happens. Vex's scales had shifted to a deep blue of amazement. They can predict the future. James laughed. No, but their senses are incredibly sharp. They can smell changes in body chemistry, hear variations in heartbeat, notice tiny differences in behavior that even we humans miss. To demonstrate, James pretended to collapse. Immediately, Max was at his side, nudging him with his nose and letting out a concerned whine. I'm okay, boy, James reassured him, standing up and giving him a pat. Then he turned to the aliens. Would anyone like to try giving him a treat? The alien delegation shifted nervously. Finally, one young science officer stepped forward, scales trembling between fear white and excitement yellow. I volunteer, they said. James handed them a treat through the force field. Hold it flat on your palm, like this. Max, gentle. The aliens watched in astonishment as Max approached the force field calmly, sat down, and waited patiently. It's okay, James assured them. You can lower the field. After a moment's hesitation, Vex nodded, and the force field disappeared. Max remained sitting, looking at the nervous alien with gentle brown eyes. The science officers slowly extended their hand. Max carefully took the treat, his teeth never touching the alien's skin. Then, to everyone's surprise, he gave the alien's hand a tiny lick. He's warm, the science officer said in wonder, their scales turning a bright yellow of joy. And soft. More aliens began to step forward, curiosity overcoming fear. James produced more treats, showing each one how to properly feed and pet Max, who remained perfectly behaved throughout. You see, James said, watching as Vex themselves cautiously reached out to touch Max's fur, dogs understand gentleness as well as strength. They know when to be fierce protectors and when to be gentle friends. It's extraordinary, Vex admitted, their scales now a peaceful green as they scratched behind Max's ears. We spent thousands of years running from creatures like this, never imagining they could be. They paused as Max leaned into their touch. So wonderful. As the aliens continued to interact with Max, taking turns petting him and offering treats, James smiled. This was humanity's true strength, not the ability to make weapons or win wars, but the power to turn ancient enemies into faithful friends. To be continued. Word spread quickly through the Coalition fleet. Within hours, the observation deck of Hope's Horizon had become an impromptu cultural exchange center. Alien officers and crew members took turns visiting, each wanting to see the legendary beast that had turned out to be anything but fearsome. High Commander Vex stood beside Commander James, their scales a peaceful shade of green as they watched Max demonstrate his skills for yet another group of amazed visitors. You know, Vex said thoughtfully, this explains so much about your species that we never understood before. James raised an eyebrow. Oh, yes. Vex's scales rippled with different shades of blue as they organized their thoughts. We always wondered how humans could be both fierce warriors and gentle caregivers. How you could be technologically advanced, but still so connected to nature. Now we see. You learned it from them. On the floor, Max was showing a group of alien scientists how he could solve puzzle toys to get treats. The aliens watched in amazement as he used his nose and paws to figure out the mechanisms. It's true, James agreed. Dogs taught us a lot about loyalty, patience, and unconditional love. But they also taught us about leadership. Leadership. Vex turned all four eyes to James. Watch, James said, pointing to where Max had finished his puzzle. Max, come. The dog immediately left his toys and trotted over, sitting attentively at James's feet. See, good leadership isn't about fear or dominance. It's about trust and respect. Max doesn't obey because he's afraid of punishment. He obeys because we've built a relationship based on trust and positive reinforcement. A young alien child who had come aboard with their scientist parent cautiously approached Max. Instead of his usual alert posture, Max immediately lay down, making himself appear smaller and less threatening. Amazing, Vex breathed. He adjusted his behavior without any command. Dogs are incredibly good at reading emotions and situations, James explained. They know when to be protective and when to be gentle. In many ways, they're better at understanding feelings than we are. The child, encouraged by Max's gentle demeanor, reached out to pet him. Max's tail wagged softly, and he gave the child's hand a gentle lick, causing them to giggle, a sound that made the adult alien scales turn bright yellow with joy. Commander James, Vex said suddenly, I would like to propose something. I'm listening. What if, instead of a peace treaty, we established a friendship treaty? And what if? Vex's scales shifted to a slightly embarrassed purple. What if part of that treaty included a program where some of our people could learn to work with dogs? James grinned. You want to start a coalition K9 unit. Not just military applications, Vex hurried to add. We've been reviewing Earth's data networks. Therapy dogs, rescue dogs, service dogs. The ways you work with these animals are endless. Our people could benefit from such relationships. It would be a big commitment, James warned. Training dogs and people to work with dogs takes time and patience. We have conquered 12 solar systems, Vex reminded him, their scales now showing determination orange. Surely we can learn to throw a tennis ball. As if on cue, Max trotted over with his favorite ball, dropping it at Vex's feet. The alien commander, who just hours ago had been ready to attack Earth, carefully picked up the slobbery ball. Like this, they asked, mimicking the throwing motion they'd seen humans make. Just like that, James encouraged. Vex threw the ball, and Max happily bounded after it. The gathered aliens watched in delight as he brought it back, tail wagging, ready to play again. You know, James said, watching as Vex threw the ball again with growing confidence, I think this could be the beginning of a beautiful friendship." "Yes," Vex agreed, their scales glowing with happiness as Max returned once more. "Though perhaps we should update our first contact protocols. Beware of dog clearly doesn't mean what we thought it meant." To be continued. 6 months after the almost invasion of Earth, the main hall of Hope's Horizon space station had been transformed. Banners representing both human and coalition worlds hung from the ceiling, and the room was filled with an unusual mix of beings: humans, aliens, and dogs of various breeds. Commander James stood at the podium, Max sitting alertly by his side as he prepared to address the gathered crowd. High Commander Vex stood next to him, their scales shifting through happy shades of green and yellow. "When the Coalition fleet first arrived at Earth," James began, "we all expected a very different outcome. Instead, thanks to one very good boy," he reached down to pat Max's head, "we discovered something much better than victory. We found friendship." The assembled humans and aliens applauded. Several coalition members had learned to clap just for occasions like this, though some still preferred to show appreciation through color changes. "Today," James continued, "we celebrate not just the signing of our friendship treaty, but also the graduation of the first class of coalition dog handlers." 20 alien officers stepped forward, each accompanied by a dog. There were German shepherds like Max, gentle Labrador retrievers, intelligent border collies, and even a few energetic huskies. Each alien's scales glowed with pride. "These officers," Vex took over, their voice filled with emotion, "have spent months learning what humans have known for thousands of years, that there is no greater gift than the trust and loyalty of these remarkable creatures." One of the Labradors chose that moment to roll over for a belly rub, making everyone laugh. Its alien handler, showing no trace of their species' former fear, immediately bent down to oblige. "But perhaps," Vex continued, their scales shifting to a more serious blue, "what we've really learned is something about ourselves. We came here expecting to find enemies, but instead, we found teachers, both human and canine." James nodded. "The first human who offered friendship to a wolf took a huge risk. Today, we've all taken a similar risk, reaching out across the stars to former enemies, choosing trust over fear, friendship over conflict." And speaking of friendship, Vex added, their scales turning slightly purple with embarrassment, "I have an announcement to make." They reached under the podium and pulled out a small carrier. Inside was a tiny German shepherd puppy, just 8 weeks old. The crowd broke into excited murmurs. "This is Scout," Vex announced proudly. "Thanks to Commander James and Max, I've decided to become a dog handler myself." Though I must admit, they added as the puppy yawned adorably, "It's hard to believe our ancestors were so afraid of something so cute." The puppy wagged its tail at the sound of Vex's voice, clearly already bonded to its new owner. Max looked up at the tiny pup with what could only be described as approval. "And so," James concluded, "what began as a misunderstanding has led to something unprecedented. The Coalition's fearsome fleet now includes K9 units. Their healing centers have therapy dogs. Their search and rescue teams work alongside four-legged partners, all because they took the time to understand what we meant when we said man's best friend." As if to emphasize the point, Scout let out a tiny bark that made several alien officers reflexively jump, only to laugh at their own lingering instincts. "To the future," Vex said, lifting the puppy out of its carrier. Scout immediately licked their face, causing their scales to ripple with joy. "To friendship," James added, as Max stood up to gently nose the puppy. The hall erupted in applause and color changes as humans and aliens celebrated together. In one corner, a border collie was teaching an alien scientist how to play frisbee. In another, a therapy dog was helping a nervous coalition cadet overcome their lingering fear of canines. And in the center of it all, a tiny German shepherd puppy fell asleep in the arms of a being whose ancestors had fled from its kind, while its human and alien audience watched with matching smiles and happy-colored scales. Sometimes, James thought as he watched Max gently guard the sleeping scout. The fiercest weapons truly did turn out to be love, trust, and a willingly offered paw. The end.